Hi, welcome to the Shepherd's Rest Dog Talk. This is episode 197A.
I'm Cam, this is Julie. This week's Torah portion, we are moving on into Numbers. We're in Balak, which is from Numbers 22, verse 2 to 25, verse 9.
And if you would like to check out some of our past year's teachings on Balak, that would be 53A and B, 102A and B, and 148.
All right. Woo. Okay, now,
Here.
yeah, this is crazy.
It is.
And we're almost to 200. Another unbelievable. Okay, let me talk about this verse. You know, in Numbers 23:10, actually in 23, is when we look at the three mountain experiences, so the three times they go up on the mountain. Now, there's four times that Balaam really says something to them. The fourth one is like a lame yap. Okay, he goes up on the mountains. Balak brings him up and says, "Do something about this." But that last time is just a freebie, and that's in chapter 24 when Balaam says, "You know, I'm going home, but let me tell you what's coming down on you before I go." I'm sure Balak was like, no. But
it reminds me
he
of
heard
this,
it anyway.
This week's Torah portion in Acts. When Paul stands before Felix and he tells him what's going to befall in the very last days.
Yes.
And Felix is like, "I don't want to hear this anymore. Go away."
And you know, that's exactly how this is. This is in, so let's just read that. Chapter 24, verse 14. It says, "And now see, I am going to my home, my people." This is Balaam. "Come, let me advise you what the people, or what this people is going to do to your people in the latter days." That latter days is not going to be in this king's lifetime.
Right.
That latter day is literally in the end times. Okay.
Like our lifetime, maybe?
Yes.
Maybe.
So
I
when
don't know, I'm
you
getting
go,
old.
it's all right. We're always to look forward, as
I
if
know.
remember Paul thought the whole time it was going to be his.
I know.
But that's okay. That's how we're supposed to live. So there's, you know, Moab is told, "Hey, by the way, this is happening too. You're going down."
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, since I'm talking to you, I'll tell you about your neighbors Edom over there too. Oh, and the Ammonites. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to tell you even about Amalekites, right?
Right.
Remember in in Exodus 17 at the end, I think it's verse 19, where the Lord is telling Israel that he's going to blot Amalek out. And not only that, he's going to fight generation to generation and protect Israel from the Amalekites.
Right.
Amalekites? Did I say that right? I think I did.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Amalekites.
Yeah.
Amalekites.
Amalek's people. He's going to fight them. And they show up here. I find it so interesting that as Balaam is telling him about end times, he's bringing these other people in. Again, this is stuff that we're still waiting to see happen. It happens in cycles. So I'd like to suggest that in the cycles, Mountaintop 1, Mountaintop 2, Mountaintop 3 are those cycles.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Now, what I was saying was before, like Seinfeld, all the way back to where we were a minute ago, in Numbers 23 on the mountaintops, what we have is we're seeing Abraham's promises being fulfilled through the words of Balaam, what he's seeing, okay? And remember, he's looking at right now, but he's seeing into the future as well. So on Mountaintop 1, which is 23:10, if you see, it says, "Who shall count the dust of Jacob and the number of 1/4 of Israel? Let me die the death of the upright, and let my end be like his." Okay, that right there is showing the vast number of Israel. Isn't that one of the promises to Abraham?
Yes.
That you're going to become mighty people. And I think it's interesting because Abraham is, well, he's considered spiritual as well as physical. By mentioning Israel, there's your spiritual, and mentioning Jacob, there's your physical. Both of them are represented in this. They're not only do they see the numbers in the earth, they're seeing the numbers in the heavenly. And so he's making this reference. And I love the fact that this first warning that it says, "Let me die the death of the upright, let me end like this." Basically, Balaam is speaking these words of "let me end like Israel's going to end" on top.
But he doesn't.
He doesn't. But the Lord is giving him the chance, right? The ability. Mm-hmm. Remember the three? The first one that we started on where the donkey goes into the on the way, and he gets sent out into the field. I don't remember if I said that earlier or I just thought it. Anyway, so the Lord, Balaam's on the donkey, he's going out, and the Lord is standing there with his sword, and then he goes into the fields like the world. Well, what's interesting is that's kind of the warning. And then the second one of that becomes more of a warning, because then he's between two vineyards. These are things that are producing, right? The vineyards, and that's what he's in a narrow passage, but he's not in a walled area. He can still turn around.
Oh, okay.
So that's in chapter 22, and only reason why I say that he can still turn around is because it says in chapter 22, verse 25, it says, "And when the donkey saw the messenger of the Lord, she pushed herself against the wall, and crushed Balaam's foot against the wall, and he struck her again." So there's a second strike. But it says the next one in verse 26, "And the messenger of the Lord went further and stood in the narrow place where there was no way to turn aside." So since we have a narrow passage, and then we have a narrow place, I'm assuming they're different. In other words, it's getting field. We're squeezing in. Yes. Again, I see these three kind of lining up with the mountain parts, because on the mountain one, it's like, hey, there's all these people. That's the first one. Then the next one is like, hey, there's this kingdom. And so that one is in 23 when we look at verses 14 through 24. And that one is showing there's a kingdom. That one is where Balaam is basically telling Balak, hey, not only are there a lot of people, but they're going to be like a lion, and they're devouring, and there's going to be, it talks about how their God is among them, something different, right? Moab, think about this. They're going on 3 mountaintops. Each of those mountaintops are high places for gods.
Right.
Just like in Egypt where the Lord fought all those gods. Mm-hmm. I would suggest that this is a spiritual word battle where they're going up to present to these gods to allow them to overcome the God of Israel. It's not happening because the Lord is making Balaam speak these words of hope, these words of blessing.
Right.
And if you remember, we have these examples where the Lord said, I say remember, like we talked about it, but in chapter 23, here's a good example. It says, verse 16, "And the Lord came to Balaam and put the words in his mouth and said, 'Go back to Balak and say this.'" It's not clear. It could be that he told him what to say and he goes back and says it, or he goes back and he says, "I'm supposed to tell you this," and then says it. It's not really clear whether he's had time to think about it, whether he's had time to maybe, change the way it's presented a little bit, or if it's literally just open your mouth. We have those examples in Scripture. In Matthew, I think it's maybe 11:19. I may be wrong. I'll put it right here. But in Matthew, where Lord's like, don't worry about what you're going to say.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to be before kings. You're going to be before these people. Don't worry what you're going to say. Just open your mouth and I'm going to give you the words. That's exactly what's happening with Balaam. Though Balaam's wasn't his plan, but the Lord's still going to do that. So let's look at that second mountaintop. Like I said, we have the lion. There's understanding now it's a kingdom. So it's people, the first mountaintop. Mountaintop 2, it is this kingdom. Okay. And then mountaintop 3, it's going beyond that to worldwide domination. Ooh. And that's in 24. In 24, verse 6 is where it says, and this is very Garden Eden type language. "Let the wadis that stretch out like gardens by the river, like aloes planted by Yoveh, like cedars beside water. He makes water flow from his bucket, and his seeds is in many waters. His king is higher than Agag, and his reign is exalted." And then it goes on. So right there, it's like, okay, here was this guy you thought was big. No, even bigger than that. This kingdom's even bigger.
Wow.
And then what's interesting is when he, being Balaam, gives the free land yap to the free information.
I'm so confused. Isn't Agag later?
Agag is later. But I thought that Agag kingdom was.
I don't think I've ever noticed that before. I'm sorry.
No, that's good. I thought that Agag was a title. Okay, maybe
is
I'm wrong.
it?
I thought Agag was like Abimelech.
Oh, I don't know.
And like,
I just know Saul
Amalek.
didn't kill Agag.
Right. And
King.
I may be wrong. I thought it's like Pharaoh. I thought Agag was like
Probably
like
is.
Pharaoh.
That would make sense.
And I may be wrong. But
that's later.
let's say that's not the case. Let's say that this
Like a
is
Cyrus thing.
Yes,
in
I was going to say
Isaiah.
it could absolutely be one of those that they're like, whatever. Who's Agag?
Just
and then
making
later
stuff
on,
up now.
and then later on, people are going Agag. And then so hey, we do have that because we have where Agag is. Oh, Julie,
What?
could that be part of even the bigger disgrace that Saul did by not killing Agag?
When he
Because
knew the
it said
prophecy?
he's supposed to kill Agag?
And he's the king, so he's supposed
Yes.
to write the Torah. He should know this.
Oh my goodness. So that's interesting because then Samuel's the one that has to do it for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the priest prophet is the one that has to come behind him and clean up his mess because he didn't do it right. That is so interesting.
So for them to say another king will arise that's bigger than Agag. But I also think of Agag and then the guy that is completely not coming to my mind that's in the Haman.
Yes, Haman.
In the Esther story.
Mhm.
He's a descendant of Agag.
Right.
So Hitler's probably a descendant of...
I would absolutely think that.
I don't know how, since all his kids were...
Killed.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Haman is from that line.
No, I mean Hitler being from the
Oh.
line after that when
Gotcha,
all
after
of Haman's
Haman.
kids
Got
were
you.
killed on
Yeah,
it.
spirit of Haman just had to leave the
Right.
body and go on.
Right, yeah.
Anyway,
We
way
digress.
off. Yes. Hope you enjoyed that. Coming back. Okay, so anyway, what were we talking about?
Agag.
Oh yeah,
I just am so confused.
So how the Lord? So now how the Lord is even, going to be bigger than that, right? Bigger than Agag. There's going to be this king that that reigns even higher than him. So again, we go for all these people. We go to this bigger kingdom, and then this bigger kingdom, this Garden of Eden type talk. So let's connect that back to my thought of the 3 warnings for Balaam.
Okay.
He had you need to probably turn around. Hey, these are a lot of people.
Yeah.
Then you have here's the vineyards. We've got some great stuff happening, and you're crushing the foot. You're crushing the way you're walking. So here we have a kingdom, and he's going to crush. We have the lion that's devouring. Okay, he's going to crush. All right, just keep going. No, keep rebelling. Well, let's do it one more time. Even though in 23 verse 23, 23, I didn't plan that. It says, "For there is no sorcery against Jacob, nor is there any divination against Israel. Now it is said that Jacob and to Israel, what has El done?" Okay, right there, Balaam knows, okay, sorcery is
There's
out.
nothing I can do.
And here's what's really interesting is when you go down to
'Cause I'm a phony.
24, it says, "And when Balaam saw that it pleased the Lord to bless Israel, he did not go as the other times to seek to use sorcery." So that time, this third time on the mount, he does not go to try to do magic, try to battle with, try to manipulate the living God to do what he wants him to do. And when he doesn't do that is when he sees, it's the time he says, "When my eyes were open." And that's in verse 4, where he says, "The man saying of him who hears the words of El, who sees the visions of Almighty, who falls down with eyes wide open," or open wide. Well, that was back in the donkey time. That was back when he saw the messenger standing there.
Yeah.
So then the next, like I was saying, we got sidetracked. The next thing that when Balaam just happens to give them the information, the free information, without asking, that again is your complete annihilation in the end times, because this kingdom will be eternal. So then we have the time where, back on that third, with the donkey, so then you have the point where he can't turn around. Well, that's that. When the scepter, the king who comes out with the scepter, the king that's going to rule the whole world, you can't turn around. There's no turning back. all the time, I would suggest that all these times before that Balaam is giving the words are times that Moab could go, you know what? I'm going to just join him. I'm just going to join the living God.
Yeah.
We're going to say yes to that God. But he never did. And he finds himself now in that narrow passage. There's no way to turn. You must continue on your evil way.
I think that is indicative of all of our lives. Each one of our lives, we start on this wide road that leads to destruction.
Yes.
And all along the way, the Lord is there saying, turn around. Just turn around. Just go a different way. And we ignore it, and we're so set on going to pretty soon we have Romans 1 where he just gives them over.
Right,
to
exactly.
That delusion.
He's like, fine, enjoy the wide road.
Yeah.
That's great comparison. And right, I mean, Balak still just enjoyed it and was headstrong and nope, he let his fear control it. And it he never was able to give that over.
And then fear of what?
They've already been whipped by the Amorites. They're already, I guess that they're going to get beat again. But again, if they would join, they'd be back in their land too.
Yeah.
Just under a different rule, but whatever. But yeah. One of the other things about those 3 events with Balaam and the donkey is, if you remember, he beats the donkey and he's like, why didn't you bring me on the way I wanted to go?
Yeah.
And then basically it was like, the donkey's like, so I would save your life. I suggest that is the same thing here. Balak is like, why didn't you bring me the way I wanted to go? Why didn't you curse them? And basically Balaam is like, well, because I saved your life. Because had he cursed him, it would look, even though it still ends up poorly for them, it would still look different. There would have probably been termination right there. But instead, the Lord allows the Moabites to continue so we can have Ruth, right? And the Amorites and the others to continue to serve the purpose that the Lord has created them to serve. And then later will be done with those who choose not to turn to him.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just thought it's kind of overlapping, and I hope I did an okay job of pulling in the donkeys, the 3 mountains, and kind of how it works.
This sounds like a joke.
I don't have a punchline.
The donkeys, the mountains, and
the curses.
Oh, Balaam.
Yeah. So, all right. Hopefully you can follow me. Get your Bible out, turn those pages, and read those scriptures, and it will all piece together with a thread. I promise.
This is just your springboard.
That's right. All right. Well, we sure do thank you for joining us. We hope you have a fantastic study time. And we will see you on the flip side with Julie and Axe. Shalom.